Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
I don't trap, I don't kill, I don't relocate, I don't poison. I don't need to. Do I have a ton of live traps, all custom made and everything else? Yes, I don't know what to do with them. They're extreme emergency cases, and it doesn't help my client. What helps my client is them getting their home given back to them on a platter and being able to tell them, hey, I don't care if it's a rat or a raccoon, nothing's ever getting back in your house again. But if you go and change the exterior, give me a call. It's not going to cost you a dime for me to go and look at the new roof work or the new addition that you just had done or your new lanai after a hurricane, because you're my client.
Ned Bruha, wildlife whisperer, was describing his humane wildlife control and prevention process. He relocates pests without trapping or killing, and then secures the home or location where the pests were residing, making sure they can never return. And now, here's Ned. We have with us today Ned Bruha from the company's name is the Wildlife Whisperer, which is a fabulous name. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been trying to get you, and I know how busy you are, and finally we got you. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We always start in the beginning. Where you were born and raised, we were familiar with the state you were brought up in, and where you went to school, what you did work-wise, military-wise, how you finally ended up on Pine Island.
Coffee, yeah. Grew up in Wisconsin, and I attended some college there, and my first job out of high school was managing a 80-unit apartment complex. And my HVAC guy said, you need to meet this guy. He's a farrier. It's trimming horses' hooves and horseshoeing. I think this would be really great for your outdoorsy nature and hands-on. And long story short, went on the road with him. He said, you go down to Oklahoma, take this 80-week course and come back up here and I'll give you my entire route. I want to retire. And I said, I'm going to move to Oklahoma and I'm going to take the farrier college class there, but I'm not coming back up to the Great White North. I want t-shirts and shorts year round, and Tulsa wasn't it. There was still snow there. So finally made it to Pine Island in 2017. Wanted to be a farrier. I grew up on a farm and working around perching horses. It made me appreciate that type of lifestyle. But I fell in love with the wildlife management, and I decided I wanted to be able to do t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops year-round and pay attention to Jimmy Buffett and move south where the weather suits your clothes. And finally made my way to the island here in 2017.
Do you remember how you found the island? It's not the first thing that pops off the top of people's heads, when they think of Florida.
No, it was here, Puerto Rico, Bahamas, someplace where I could still be an American citizen and do what I do hands-on by myself without a staff. And by the time I first visited the island in 2017, I had driven up and down every single street of Pine Island on Google Maps, and I knew it like the back of my hand and had already fallen in lust with this part. It's like a country version, and I knew I'd be making my living in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, all of that area, but I grew up country, and that's why Pine Island is that much more attractive to me. That's how I chose Pine Island.
It's still a good decision for the shorts and the t-shirt.
Everybody asks me, well, why do you have your mailing address and your business address in Cape Coral. And I say, well, for search engine optimization, which is needed for a business. And it was funny back then, but it's certainly not funny anymore. I always said, well, that's the UPS store. I need that in order to receive my packages reliably if I'm not at home or at the office. And I said, what happens if we lose our bridge in a hurricane? And I didn't know that was going to happen. When I found out that we were going to have a hurricane, I was actually camping up in the Teton Mountains, and I grabbed a flight out of Jackson Hole and got back here so I could be here for it. Because after Irma and seeing the looting here, I said, I'm not evacuating.
What were the wildlife impacts after a hurricane, and then presumably you got inquiries or work out of that?
Oh, just like COVID, wildlife doesn't care about hurricanes or diseases. They're going to take advantage. If you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. I really believe I'm still fixing things from Charlie.
Wow. Okay.
The work ethic where I make a living, which is where your roof and the soffit meet and make a triangle. Not everybody is small and skinny like me. And so that portion of the home is never finished. And that's the number one entry point into a person's home nationwide.
Wow.
When you're talking about where they go to get into the attic and into the house. And so when that portion is barely connected, even on a brand spanking new home, yet alone a 40-year-old home, I mean, I'm able to tell people, just like I have for 26 years, well, this is, from what it sounds like, this is where they're coming and going from, and here's a problem. But no, it's usually soffits and fascia, sloppy DIY work, sloppy handyman, soffit, fascia guys. I make a living off of roofers, builders, DIYers who just don't pay attention to super, super fine detail. What I do is tedious, OCD work that nobody wants to do.
Well, it seemed to me, and having never done that job, so this may be unfair, but to them, it's a means to ventilating the attic and keeping the home comfortable, which is counter to what you just said, which is we have points of entry, our windows and our doors, and we lock them, and we put burglar alarms in some homes, and we do all that, yet we have the primary point of entry for, we've had a home with bats, right? Or am I thinking?
Yeah.
We had bats get up there, although that was a vent or something that the screen had deteriorated over time. So they at least put some pressure up. But it's interesting you say that, because it's like, of all the things when you look at a home, I don't think anybody really looks at soffit and says, ooh, I wonder if that's intact or that's okay.
And in all of the DIYers, roofers, builders, handymen, and weekend warrior dad bods, it's not their fault. It's not what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. For example, I didn't know what I did for a living until like 07, 09 ice storms in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the president of Abras Roofing Company said, we waterproof homes for a living. If you want it micromanaged and all of those bats out of your attic, you call Ned. Back then I was the skunk whisperer. And I finally figured, a roofing company taught me what I did for a living. Because a roof is going to have holes in it, but water doesn't normally travel up and directly sideways. They did their job waterproofing the home. The soffit and fascia guru, he did his job. They're not responsible in any way, shape, or form for solidifying it to keep the Bokelia bear or a raccoon or an iguana out of your attic. That's not their job. It's the career that I chose. Actually, I didn't choose this. I wanted to be a redneck with a trap and a truck. I started out just that way and pointed at the hole and said, if you don't fix that, I'll be back next week, next month, or next year to take more of your money and more of your animals. And my father, he said, that's something else you got going on there. That's the smartest thing you've ever done. And you love it. And there's good money. And I said, yeah. He goes, you're a thief. I said, what? He goes, it's not an animal problem. It's a house problem. You need to fix the house. I'm like, Dad, how do I keep rats or squirrels out of a home? They chew through wood and metal. He goes, I don't know. I'm a school teacher for a living. But if you want to do this, you need to figure out how to do this correctly. Do it right the first time. Give them a solution. And I did free repairs for several years while continuing to trap, relocate, point at the hole, and take more money. And I quickly found out that the best tool in my toolbox was that squirrel in the attic or that skunk that was under the house. Leaving those in the same territory, leave those guys there and fix the problem instead of repeatedly addressing the symptom. And now the only time I really get repeat clients is when they get a new home, a new roof, or a new hurricane.
And you told your dad, right? You fixed the problem? Yeah. Okay, he's a good teacher. I don't know how to solve it, but you figure it out. That's what you need to do.
I wanted to play with animals for a living, and I didn't know I was going to end up a glorified handyman. But that's really all I am, is a glorified handyman who understands wildlife and how to talk with them.
So you're still doing a lot of relocation, or is it primarily with this sealing and the attention to detail to stop the intrusion?
Micromanaging a home and manipulating the mother to pull the babies out in her mouth one by one and relocate them on her own accord.
Okay.
So, I mean, animals don't want to be in the attic, but it's free shelter, just like an iguana on a seawall, taking advantage of erosion. It's free shelter. All any animal wants is three things, including us, because we are animals. It's food, water, and shelter. We can't typically take the water away, but we can take away the food. And we certainly can take away the shelter, especially if it's our shelter, our homes. So getting them out and keeping them out. And one, it's an investment in your most expensive investment, your home. Prevention pays. I'm blessed right now. I'm doing a bunch of prevention work. So many people don't think ahead and do prevention work, and then they have the added expense of me fixing the damage that the uninvited furry guests inflicted on the house.
You're also doing something with ospreys, is that correct?
No, part of the reason I came down here. Why would you want to move to this climate? I wanted to work with animals that I had never worked with before in my life. I wanted a challenge. I'm always wanting to improve myself and my process. And osprey, iguanas, Muscovy ducks, and scorpions, different animals that, and the most important thing, having babies year round down here. That's what I wanted.
That's raccoons, right?
Raccoons, squirrels. Up north, all we have is typically babies being born in the spring. Yeah. Squirrels, of course, always give birth 2 times a year. But down here, it doesn't matter what month it is. We get babies every month out of the year. Not to say that we didn't in Oklahoma, but it wasn't as common. The bumper crops of babies were always in the spring. Here, it's all year round.
Is that probably the warmth then?
I would absolutely.
I just guessing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That and the abundance of food. I mean, the animals here have adapted and chosen this area.
I was thrilled with growing season. You have twice a year you can learn how to grow things.
Yes.
Which is,
the
I love
foliage.
That. Yes.
I'm a herb gardener and perennial gardener. And I'm starting to dabble with heirloom seeds in a little grow station and try different stuff. It's just amazing what you can do down here. So. Yeah, the osprey work is super, super rewarding.
And you did a lot after Ian, right? We were just talking about Ian. You were like installing new.
Yeah, we have hundreds of poles and platforms that need to go up. We lost so much habitat, Pine Island, Cape Coral, Sanibel, Captiva, Fort Myers. All of their nests and platforms got knocked down, but then the trees that they could possibly have gone and put a natural nest on, they were totally demolished also. And then what that causes is they're trying to nest and make nests in trees that aren't appropriate and aren't going to hold them. So we had a lot of deaths and low birth rates and so forth in quite a few areas because of that. Now, as the trees grow back and start to heal, so will the osprey population.
What regulations do you have to abide by? Is there anything that you have to?
So in Florida, and I'm not for adding a bunch of rules and regulations to everybody's lives and what they do for a living, but sadly in Florida, there's hardly anybody who's governing us. And by us, I mean, quote, unquote, wildlife management professionals. Rednecks with traps in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
There's no license, and that's scary. So there's a large group of us behind the scene who have been working on it for years, trying to get it so we actually have a license and there is some accountability. Because if you don't train and regulate yourself, you're going to be regulated. And we're just trying to shape what that's going to look like, shape the wording and regulations that are coming up and changing because of it, the different classes and courses which would have to be taken in the industry. I've taken everything I possibly could over the years, but in Florida, I think it was like 96 or 97, they just said, all right, free for all, anything you want to do. Now, pest control, that's totally different. Pest control has all their rules, regs, license, and so forth, but FWC considers all of us rednecks with traps and trucks right now.
So you talked about coaxing the mother to bring the baby out. I assume there's a level of stress or they feel comfortable in something. So what's some of the process about, I assume you don't want the animal under stress for its own survival as well as achieving your goal of getting it out? Because I assume a scared animal is not going to cooperate, not that they cooperate anyway, but how do you kind of go through all that?
Good question. And a good example is what you brought up, raccoons. It's one of my very favorite, next to bats, and it is working with raccoon mothers. And so first thing to understand about raccoons is they're part of the bear family.
Oh.
And they have the same type of fight or flight or fight and flight instinct built into them. And it's a little bit of a warped view to most people, but you were talking about scaring. I'd like to use the word manipulating simply because if you scare a mother raccoon too much, she's going to take her babies and kill them right then and there on the spot, and then she's going to take off. There's something in that mindset there is I'm not going to let anything bad happen to my babies, and I feel threatened. I need to take care of myself. So approaching a home with a mother raccoon and babies or possible babies, I can't go in there as a barking dog or put a barking dog up in the attic, jokingly speaking, and scaring the tar out of her. I have to be able to gently manipulate her to want to take the babies out one by one in her mouth and relocate them. For a Christmas gift to myself, this past year, I got some Ring cameras that I stick up at clients' homes now after trying to figure out what company I wanted to go with for this. So I have it. So I get woke up in the middle of the night and I can actually literally talk with the raccoon and tell her to get out. Now that sounds really silly and like I'm making a joke out of it, but there's something about a human voice coming out of there. But even without all of that, quote unquote, scare, and it does scare them, I'm relying on proper repairs because a raccoon with their little tiny human-like hands, they grab a hold of those soffits and that fascia and they destroy it and shred it in seconds.
Wow.
So my mission is to make every house I touch Fort Knox without the average Joe being able to look from the ground and see a single thing. Most of my work, you can be right on the roof. And I send before, during, and after photos to clients, and they're like, I don't see what you did. And that's good, I did my job. Oh, I mean, my guarantee is for this long, but I guarantee it's going to last the life of the home. And you're not going to get a human that's going to break in there, yet alone a raccoon. Case in point, Ian and any strong wind event, clients call me back and say, hey, the only soffits I have left on my house are the ones you touched. Can you help me?
Yeah, yours stayed on, huh?
Yeah. They're not coming off. You just have to look, like you were talking earlier, at every building in a totally different manner. There are certain architectural features that different species will go and religiously attack every single time.
Okay.
So as long as I do preventative maintenance on the areas that Mama Raccoon, for example, has not destroyed, when I use a spring-loaded one-way door with a tricky 3-step process that I use, Mom, she's going to go out, relocate her babies, but she's going to be looking at the house to all these other architectural features that she knows to attack. It finds out she can't move them back in because those are all rock solid, so she has to move on. Raccoons are also a good example because research has repeatedly shown that they have 54 plus places that they bed down every single year.
Wow.
Now, of course, the most difficult time to get them to move along is when they have babies or are about to have babies. I would say a good 75+% of my clients had their problem for at least 1 to 4 months before I got there. They're like, I want somebody to take care of it now. I said, ma'am, sir, by the time I get there and show you photographs, most of the time I'm showing you proof that this animal has been coming and going for months. For example, all the dirt, sweat, oils, and so forth on a rat or a raccoon going in and out of a hole so many times, it takes quite a while for that mark, that grease spot, to get dark brown or black. So when a person says they've never had a rat problem, and I get there and the top of their plumbing pipes and around the entry hole is totally black, this has been going on for 4 or 5+ years easily. Or you have 1,000 of them in there and they accomplish this in a week, but that's not very often. It's a house problem. It's not a mouse problem.
So you talked about talking over the ring. Do you do something crazy like, classical music, country music, or anything? Or I assume human noises must not bother them too much because they're living inside human structures, or structures where humans live, I guess.
Exactly. You'll see the video. And the looks on their faces.
I saw the video. You said they didn't want to talk to you. In the end, they didn't want to talk to you. That was a cute video.
Yeah, it's just something that's fun that I enjoy doing. Plus, it's really fun for clients. It's part of the education. That's one thing. If you look at my reviews and you talk to my clients, is they all feel as though they were educated. That raccoon, or that's on your roof, or that raccoon that was living on your seawall, that dominant male out there, leave those guys alone because they're territorial and they're going to keep everybody else out of your neighborhood, both of them. So you go and trap and kill the dominant male iguana that's on your seawall with the reddish, orange, and yellow big spikes and the biggest, longest one. You're going to trade that one for 21 juvenile males coming into the area to vie for the attention of all the females. And the same with raccoons, who have X numbers of acres that they call their own territory. You remove that raccoon, you're going to have others come in. And when the others come in, they're going to be super curious because of all the scent left behind by the one you just trapped and relocated, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's not a bunny hugger angle. It's a dollars and cents and common sense idea that I came up with and had to start looking at, am I the only one in the US who functions this way? And there's a couple dozen of us in the US. It's just something that not a whole lot of people do. When it comes to, I don't trap, I don't kill, I don't relocate, I don't poison. I don't need to. Do I have a ton of live traps, all custom made and everything else? Yes, I don't know what to do with them. They're extreme emergency cases, and it doesn't help my client. What helps my client is them getting their home given back to them on a platter and being able to tell them, hey, I don't care if it's a rat or a raccoon, nothing's ever getting back in your house again. But if you go and change the exterior, give me a call. It's not going to cost you a dime for me to go and look at the new roof work or the new addition that you just had done or your new lanai after a hurricane, because you're my client. I'm here to take care of you and make it so you don't have to look at my ugly face ever again.
It seems like the education is almost as important as the actual repair or the reinforcement, because now if I know what to do or I know how to respond, to your point, by the time we figure it out, we've had a guess for some period of time. And your goal here, I assume, is get us to the point where we understand how to not get them in at all and or be aware of when they're first coming in, does that make it a little bit easier if they're not fully settled for you then?
Absolutely. Because once animals get themselves dug in, so to speak, why would they want to leave? They're going to put up a fight. Oh, am I disappointed in some of the animals I interact with and they don't give me a fight? Yes. Yes. I kind of like earning my money sometimes.
Is there an ending to the story you had about the rat in the toilet, where I saw you trying to get their tails and you did have them on, but you got away with a baby?
Yeah. So that fun situation came about not by a snowbird, but it happened to be an elderly gal who never used that bathroom. And so the toilet went dry. Now, just because your toilets go dry doesn't mean that it's any easier or more difficult for a rat, snake, or iguana or frog to come up through the plumbing and into the toilet. This particular situation, the rat came up through the city sewer.
No.
I thought when I did the initial inspection that it was going to be through a roof plumbing vent. Mm-hmm. But there's been 5 or 6 situations, Cape Coral and Fort Myers, where the rats actually came in from the city sewer line. So it's either that, and I'm just getting back from Bahamas and getting caught up and still working with that client. But unless my smoke test, a plumbing smoke test shows a broken pipe up in the attic someplace that they're entering from an old septic system, so forth, pretty positive this guy actually came from the flat out sewer system. It's kind of unusual, but see it a lot with old abandoned septic systems. Mm-hmm. And once in a while, perfectly functioning sewer system in town, usually it's on towards the dead end of a street, just like many of my clients. They're dead end canals in Cape Coral.
I know you're working through the mystery. You know, you have to be like a detective to figure out how are these animals getting in. But is there a way to prevent them from using the toilet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The most common way for rats, iguanas, frogs, and snakes to get into your living quarters through the toilet is going to be the roof plumbing vent. And all you need on there is 1/4 inch galvanized hardware cloth or woven wire affixed over the top. And anybody
Sounds
can
simple.
do it. It's super simple. It's super cheap to do. And there's been so many homes where I hear a person say, I've had 4 companies out here and I can't figure out what's going on. Can you check it out? And I'm like, yeah, the only thing that this person hasn't tried is the plumbing. And I go in, I prove my theory, and put the plan in place to get them out and keep them out. But the quote unquote money, the best pictures there's certain things in my career that were really exciting, which is gross to a lot of other people. But getting that photograph that proves that you're right. Everybody says, no, rats and iguanas can't come up through a toilet. And I get a picture of a dried out toilet bowl with rat footprints, and it's full of rat feces, and they're pushed up the toilet seat and they're getting into the house. And I get the call from snowbirds with cameras indoors with rats doing all this.
Oh, no.
And yeah, prevention. I mean, it's so easy, but keep water in your toilet. It doesn't hurt. And then another way to help it stay in the toilet and not evaporate, if you're not using that room ever, is saran wrap. It helps stop the condensation. You know, the funny things I see anybody sees when they move to Florida and you're in a service industry, I was like, why is there saran wrap on this toilet?
Somebody told
There's
me.
some weirdos. But I mean, plug your drains and everything too. I mean, because the roaches, everything coming up through plumbing, it's unreal.
So you said, I believe in Oklahoma, you were the skunk whisperer. Now you're wildlife whisperer. So where'd you come up with the whisper moniker to kind of name the services of the company?
So when I started out in Tulsa, and then finally gave it a name, called it Bruha, Bruha's Nuisance Wildlife Control Incorporated. That's not too catchy. And during that time frame, I thought I was just going to be ripping the fur off of the animals and selling the furs and grilling and smoking the animals for my blue heeler, Jezebel, to eat. And it just didn't turn out that way. Anyway, I went to this week-long training class, and by the time I had gone to this week-long, they call it exclusion, and you learn how to exclude animals from buildings and all different business techniques in the industry. And I had already decided I'm not going to trap, I'm not going to kill, I'm not going to relocate, and I'm not going to open my mouth about it at this seminar. No, they're going to call me a bunny hugger. And I had ended up using my snake hooks a year prior to this seminar to walk a family of skunks out of a metal welding building outside of Tulsa. They needed to be able to get into this building to start work, but this family of skunks was wandering around. And I just said, I'll just walk them out the front door. And because they're just cats that can stink when they want to, or you surprise them. And I walked them out the front door, and I look up, I'm paying attention to my skunks, not the crowd of 100 people standing outside the door about to clap and yell and scream. And I went, shh. And a year later, it was back before Facebook and everything. And you remember those forwarded emails that you get, and it's forwarded 1,000 times around the world. And here a friend sends it to me and said, look, you've been around the world. They're calling you the skunk whisperer.
Oh.
And so I spoke with Cesar Milan's videographer when I got back from Afghanistan in with that class and everything, with that seminar, I just changed my name. I said, I think this is good for marketing. It encompasses my style. It is different. And now I wanted to disassociate from Animal Planet and Discovery when I left Tulsa. So changing my name from Skunk Whisperer to the Wildlife Whisperer was a good choice.
And that's a broader choice. You don't just
exactly
take care of skunks.
And we don't have very many skunks down here.
Do we have any at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Oh,
I get the calls about almost every single one. We have a small population of skunks. Most of it is going to be around Burnt Store and Chiquita, Pine Island Road, that little graveyard right there, and then going north, all up there. Those neighborhoods right there and going north, that's where all the skunks are at around here. I saw one dead between Pine Island and Mount Lachey several years ago. But yeah, I miss working with them. Yeah. But here, what they typically do here in that neighborhood is they go and they burrow under pool slabs because of the erosion, sidewalks, house foundations, and the soil here is junk. So the amount of erosion is incredible. So I mean, once that rough, poor portion of a foundation is partially exposed, the animals can feel that cool air and they just dig a little bit and they're in. Doesn't matter if it's a armadillo or a snake or a skunk or rat or iguana. They'd be silly not to take advantage of that free shelter.
See, I know you said you love what you do. Any future plans you're aware of, or any expansion that you're considering, or are you just in a good place and you're doing what you're doing and you're loving it and there's enough business to, sustain?
Good question. There's a couple changes I'd like to make. I want to do a lot more osprey work. I think I'm to the point where I'm going to letter my work van, and I don't really need to do any marketing. Business comes. When you do what you say you're going to do, business comes. And maybe if I quit being incognito and have an obnoxious vehicle, the marketing aspect will be out of the way and I can pick and choose a little bit more. I'm a one-man show. At 13 and a half employees with countless trucks covering all of Oklahoma. It was the biggest and the best. And I don't want that. I'm a sole proprietor. I'm the only employee, regardless of past employees wanting to come down here and help out. Now, if somebody's going to mess it up, it's going to be me. I want that quality control. I want it all myself. And am I going to do anything different? Hopefully more overseas jobs.
I was going to ask you, what about the Bahamas and how did that come about?
It almost 2 years working on that project. I didn't realize until I was there because it was all super secret for military. And I didn't understand that I could even say the island I was on or anything. But it's a lot of fun. And now that I have the general liability policy for being able to work anywhere in the world, may as well use it.
If people are interested in getting a hold of you for the services, how best do they do that? There's a primary, secondary. How do you like to be contacted?
I always prefer somebody either picking up the phone, 239-900-6411, email, or my website. Just shoot me an email. My name, you put in Ned Bruha, Bruha, or the Skunk Whisperer or Wildlife Whisperer, and you'll come up with 20 plus pages on me. I'm very easy to contact and get a hold of. I answer my own phone, which is new to me. I hadn't done that for 15 plus years until I moved to Pine Island. I answer my own phone. If I don't, leave a message, and
that's great. And you have a wonderful Facebook page. You do. So yeah, it's very entertaining, shall we put it that way. I love that.
Like it to be entertaining and educational.
It is an educational, as you call it.
Educational.
Educational. Well, thank you, Ned. I'm so glad you came. We were really looking forward to this.
Thanks for having me. I love what you guys do for the island, and I'm really happy to be part of it finally.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.